What's going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Moving Out podcast, and we have one of my dear friends and a very, very good real estate agent, Kathy. Kathy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Kathy McKenzie. I am a residential real estate agent here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri, and I work for Berkshire Hathaway.
Tell us a little bit how you got started in real estate. What was the why did you choose real estate?
That's interesting. So I got started back in 2017. I actually did not live in St. Louis. I lived in Michigan. So I lived on Lake Michigan in a little town called Saugatuck, and I was a high school teacher. And teaching is a fantastic profession, and it's very rewarding, but sometimes it's not rewarding. So I started thinking, what else could I do? And my husband and I had already started thinking about purchasing some investments. So I thought, well, I'll just get my real estate license and see how that goes. And I did, and I left teaching, and it's going well. And I'm here now, so that's even better.
And what is your favorite part since you relocated there? And this is an awesome interview to do with you since you have such a unique perspective moving into the area and now being a real estate agent for the area. What was it that drew you to the area? Did your husband move there for work? What was it that got you there?
So yes, we did move here because of my husband's job. He actually started a company with some colleagues of his, and initially the thought was to manage the company from Michigan, but that didn't happen. So after about a year in, we decided to just make the switch and come here full time. So we had already been coming here part-time, back and forth, but that's a lot. So we jumped ship and came to St. Louis and bought a house. And I used a real estate agent, even though I was a real estate agent, which tells you the importance of using a real estate agent. I didn't do it on my own.
Yes.
So we came here in July of 2019, and that's about it.
Amazing. So what is one of your favorite parts of the area now that you've gotten settled in and you are an official St. Louis, Missouri resident? What's your favorite part?
So my favorite part is there is so much to do around St. Louis. St. Louis is comprised of a few areas. So we have St. Louis City, which is, you can see kind of in the background behind me, St. Louis City, which is the downtown. So much fun. We've got the Cardinals, we've got the Blues, we've got barbecue, we've got pizza, which is amazing. So lots of good food and fun. But then outside of St. Louis City, we have an area called St. Louis County. And St. Louis County is more residential. So it's kind of where you're getting into suburbia. But I live actually about 30 minutes west outside of the city in what we call St. Charles County. So geographically, St. Louis sits basically on the Missouri River, on the border of Missouri and Illinois. So there's actually another area to St. Louis, which is the Illinois side, because a lot of people actually do live there also. So we can go to Illinois, we can go to downtown St. Louis, we can go into St. Louis County, where they have the most amazing food and some beautiful parks. And then of course my area, St. Charles County, which has the wineries and
what's your favorite park?
My favorite park? Well, the most famous park is Forest Park, and that's downtown. And that would be kind of comparable to Central Park, New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you just said wineries. What's your favorite winery?
So I actually don't go to the wineries.
Oh, okay. All right.
To partake in beverages, but
Okay.
I do. We do party bus, so they usually hit a few of the different wineries, and there are some good ones. Balducci is a good one.
Okay, very good, very good. So, so parks and wineries and a good downtown food selection. You got some major league sports to choose from, and what about nature, hiking? Like, what is it? Do you have hunting in your area? What are the recreational things to do in that way? If you got some outdoors people that like to just get out and see what nature has to offer.
So Missouri, unlike Michigan, does not have a ton of lakes, but we have a lot of rivers.
Okay.
But we do have some valleys. So there is hiking, there is biking. If you like mountain biking, you can go mountain biking. It's a little hilly if you go south of here.
Okay.
There is a lot of outdoor recreational activity, but not a lot of water related outdoor recreational activity.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's okay though. So what's the general weather like? Take me through a year in St. Louis weather-wise. Like, is it moderately cold? Is it warm? What are the weather patterns like?
So the spring and the fall is really nice here.
Okay.
The winter, we do get winter. It only snows maybe a few times in over the winter. So
Okay.
if we get 2 to 4 inches of snow on the ground or 2 to 6, lots of times things shut down here. The summer, I actually love the summer because I'm a summer person, but the summers get very hot. So we get about a month of 100 plus degrees, and it's extremely humid because, again, geographically, we sit basically on the Mississippi River. So we are in a very, very low lying area of the continent, and it does get quite humid. Some people can't handle it, and they are inside all summer long. But I like it. It gets nice and hot, toasty.
Very good. Very good. So, um, what's the commuting like? You mentioned before that you have a downtown and a city. Do you have a lot of traffic in your area compared to other places that you might have visited or lived or been? What's the traffic like? Can you commute nice and easy? And kind of like a two-part question: what are the jobs like? Is there a lot of jobs to get? If someone was relocating to your area, would they be able to find work?
So, two parts. So, traffic is manageable. It depends on how far you're driving. So, again, when people are living in the St. Louis area, they typically live maybe 30 minutes from where they work. So, but 30 minutes doesn't necessarily mean 30 miles, even though we have two very large highways that kind of bisect into St. Louis. The traffic can get a little hairy. So, depending on where you work, if you're in the city or in the county, lots of times people will live a little bit outside of where they work. They don't necessarily live right where they work. So, a lot of people, I would say, have a 30 to 60-minute commute time. Some people live in St. Charles County, where I am, and they commute into St. Louis County, or they live in St. Louis County and then they commute into the city. Or we also have South County, which is very popular. Just south of that is another county, Jefferson County. So there are a lot of great places to live. It is pretty navigable, but you are going to have a little bit of a drive. It can get congested.
Uh,
Yeah.
So, and then as far as jobs, yeah.
So jobs we have Boeing, which is here, which is a very large employer. Boeing is here. We have MasterCard World Headquarters. We have lots of great companies like Bear, a lot of very large corporations here. I would say the majority of people do commute into the city or close to the city. The county does hold some of these areas. North County also has a lot of industrial. So we have an Amazon facility here, which does employ a lot of people. My husband's company, so he's always looking for good employees. And they're over in St. Louis County, kind of just north of the city a little bit. But yeah, lots of tech companies here. It's really a great place.
So go ahead, take a moment, give your husband a shout out. What does his company do? What are they hiring for? Who are they looking for?
So his company is called Tightline Composites, and they are a carbon fiber pultrusion company, and they have a big warehouse and a factory. They make it's kind of like carbon fiber lumber, and they make these big, long carbon fiber beams that go inside of the blades of wind turbines. And
Interesting.
yes, so they make those, and then they sell those to the companies that actually manufacture the wind turbines.
Very interesting. So,
Yeah.
uh, And by wind turbines, for the people living here on Long Island watching this right now, who are very frustrated over the fact that we are an island with a coastal constant breeze that has zero wind turbine technology. So is that something that is popular where you are over there in St. Louis? Is there obviously there's a demand for wind turbine production of materials and stuff like that? Is that how any of the power in your area is generated?
There are some wind turbines. I would say the majority of the product actually gets shipped um, for use overseas. So I think a lot of it will end up being manufactured maybe here or in Europe, but then the end product will likely be in Europe or even South America or Mexico. Although we do have some. I mean, if you're on a plane and you're flying across the country, sometimes you can see the wind turbines
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like Colorado and Nevada, some places in California, but there's not a whole lot of it here.
Interesting.
We just make it here.
Very cool. So shout out to Kathy's husband. He's always looking for some good employees. So,
Yes.
um, so getting back to it, then, what would the weather be like? Generally speaking, you're saying cold winters, but not so much snow. But what about like, do you get any extreme weathers? Like I interviewed Andrew from Florida, who he did make mention that hey, hurricanes are a real problem here in Florida. Anything that you guys have to worry about there that you find yourself like, yeah, if I could trade one thing from St. Louis, I would get rid of this? Is there one thing?
We do get tornadoes.
Okay.
So we get a lot of hail as well. So sometimes we will get terrible hail hailstorms that will destroy a roof and maybe some siding. So roof claims are a real thing here with insurance, and the tornadoes. So we do have wind damage as well. Not a ton of tornadoes every year, maybe more wind storms than just tornadoes. There's a little town in Missouri, kind of the southwest corner of Missouri, called Joplin. And they had a few years back, they had a very terrible tornado that rolled through and just decimated the town. So that's probably the worst of what we get around here.
Okay. All right. So good to know. And obviously, are homes, most of the homes there, are they equipped with basements and cellars and storm cellars? And what are your options there? I only have the movie Twister to reference from when I think about tornadoes and the middle of America in that way. So what do you got?
Okay, so no tornadoes over by you.
No, we had one touchdown on Long Island, I think last year. It's such a rare thing, again, because we're on the coast. We don't get, from what I understand, what makes a tornado is a mixture of hot and cold air coming from either direction, and we just don't get that mixture that often. So we don't get it. Obviously we had Superstorm Sandy. We get some pretty violent hurricanes and things like that we have to deal with. And Long Island lately, due to the non-existent climate change that doesn't exist, is, we've got rising sea levels, which is causing terrible flooding during, I mean, normal storms here now. We're having a lot of flood damage on our coast for all of our towns that are there. So that's, an increasing concern, obviously, as years go forward and we have some of these lower than sea level communities that continue to have problems like Port Jeff Village, and a lot of the towns on the south end. So Long Island, we have a sound side between us and Connecticut, where Jared's located. And then we have, obviously the ocean. And on the ocean side, those communities get hit really hard. Although conveniently enough, we do have Fire Island, which acts as a small buffer, but still, when the tide comes in and we have a little bit of a storm going, most of those communities, they do get water in the streets and damage to the cars and the homes and all that good stuff. So, some of the people who have lived on the South Shore of Long Island listening to this podcast might be really relieved to know that you don't have a ton of water around you there in St. Louis. So they
Well,
might never have to deal
actually,
with flood. Yeah.
so I did mention that we are on the Missouri River. So we do get river flooding here.
Okay.
There was the Great Flood, I believe, of '93. I wasn't here then. And we do get river flooding. It there are areas. So geographically, again, because we sit on the Missouri River, there are areas that are designated flood zones. So that's a real issue with real estate. However, the majority of houses all still have basements. So when people come into St. Louis and we're looking, basements are very common here. The closer you get to the city, the older the inventory. So the basements may be stone. They're not necessarily concrete.
Okay.
Further you get out, they may be cinder block. And then the newer construction, as you get further west, those are typically your standard concrete basement. We do get some flooding here. And because we are in the Mississippi River Valley, there is a lot of water that does move through here. The ground is just wet. It's just kind of naturally wet. It's always wet. You're not going to avoid water here, but we don't have the kind of flooding that maybe you would get, the coastal flooding. But when it does rain a lot, the rivers do rise. We have a lot of creeks and streams and secondary rivers that feed into the Mississippi and the Missouri River. We have the Missouri River right here that feeds into the Mississippi as well. So water is an issue.
Wow.
It is an issue. We do
All
have
right.
basements. People still dig them and they still get wet, but they are the safe haven if we do have a tornado.
All right. So that's good. So you do have some shelter there. Now let's talk about the average characteristic of a home. I've been lucky enough to been following you enough to get a little bit of a glimpse, and I always comment, I'm like, I'll take it. I've seen some really good priced condos. I mean, please understand, if you're watching this or listening to this podcast and you live here on Long Island and you're looking to move out and you're trying to decide where in this country should I throw a dart and land, you have to look at St. Louis. Just from Kathy's photos and videos that she's taken alone of some of these condominiums that we just don't have here priced at a point like this. And I'll let Kathy describe like what the price point and stuff like might be. But Kathy, like what would a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo over there in St. Louis cost? If I'm looking for no frills, I don't need a ton of amenities or anything like that. I'm looking for low cost. So what's the price of the condo, and like what are the common charges and taxes looking like?
So St. Louis County, so we'll just use St. Louis County. St. Louis County has a lot of residential inventory. Condo there, if you wanted to get a decent, fairly updated condo, not a whole lot of frills, I would say you're going to spend maybe $200. You could spend less if you moved out towards St. Charles County, where I am. You might spend a little bit less.
Like 150? Could somebody pick something up for 150 if we got somebody walking around right now who just sold their house with $200,000 in cash and they want to pick something up for maybe 150, 175 and put a little work into it?
175 is probably better. Maybe 125 to 150 a couple of years ago. I would say it's closer to 175 to 200. As you get closer to the city, obviously where all the jobs are, you're going to get a little bit higher price point. So but condos are very affordable here. St. Louis is actually one of the few cities in the country where you can actually buy a house and it's cheaper than rent. So rent is a little pricey here. And the housing market is still good enough that you can get in with not a whole lot of money out of your pocket. And right now, since we're a little bit in a shifting market, we can even see some of that money coming from the sellers. So you can get in at even, a better price tag for your pocketbook.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. What would the rents be? You mentioned rents are a little expensive. If I wanted to come and I wanted to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, how much would it cost me per month?
So, for example, I have a condo, an investment property that I own. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and I rent that for $1,200 a month. That's probably a little bit low for market rate. Maybe $1,300 to $1,350. If it's a condo that allows for pets, then the price tag might be a little bit higher, just because that is more desirable. There are so many people that do have pets. So I always encourage my investors, if you're able to allow a tenant with pets, you're going to get a little bit more of a return on your rents. So maybe $1,350.
us dog owners, in some cases, love our pets more than our children. So trust me, you'll get more. Just
Yes,
just
you
just
will
ask
get
for
more.
more. We'll
I've
pay
even seen
more
rents
because
at
the dogs have to
1,500.
be able to come with us, right?
Yep.
It's you can exclude the children in some cases as long as you let my dog.
Yes.
But that's good to know. Okay, so but that's still so right now on Long Island we're having a real problem with rentals. It's like it's an actual issue, and I don't know how we're going to correct it. But I just had posted like I have a whole house rental that I'll be putting up at the end of this week. It's going to be $6,000 a month for the whole house rental. It's 4 beds, 2.5 baths. And to get into a 2 bedroom right now, I was looking the other day, like you're hard pressed to even find a 2 bedroom right now for under $3,000 a month. So the cost of living right now is just way out of control here on the island, which is why we're seeing so many people move out. So it's good to know that if you have a remote job right now that's going to allow you to work from anywhere in the country, okay, and you want to go, call Kathy and she'll get you set up. If you want to rent first before you buy, so you can get your feet wet,
Mhm.
um, figure out where you're living. That's super affordable for somebody who might take a New York salary with them over to St. Louis. And sounds like you got a good amount of options there. So let's talk about the characteristics of a house. Like the average house, like how much is your average price point home right now in your area?
So we are just under 400,000. And again, St. Louis is comprised of a couple of different markets. So St. Louis City is different than the county, which is different than St. Charles County, which is very residential. There are a lot of people that live in St. Charles County. So I would say St. Charles County, we're at about 380. St. Louis County, we are probably at 350-ish, maybe. And St. Louis City is a little bit less. There's a lot of older inventory in the city, so the a good portion of the home buyers don't necessarily want a 100 or 150-year-old home, so they kind of move out and they'll get something that's maybe 50 years old or 20 years old. Like my home is 20 years old, and this is what we would consider newer. So just the newer you get, sometimes the more expensive it can be.
Makes sense. What are the average property taxes? This is everyone's favorite question.
So property taxes are more expensive in St. Louis County than they are in St. Charles County.
Okay.
So again, another reason why a lot of people will take that extra 15-minute drive time. So maybe on a $400,000 purchase, we're looking at 5,000 a year. But again, it depends on where you are in St. Louis, if you're city, county, or St. Charles County.
Nice. The average taxes here on Long Island average out at about 10,000 to 12,000
I've heard they're
per
very
year.
expensive.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
Um, so that's good. The other question I wanted to ask is a lot of people panic about local comforts, right? Like you find your local comforts and you get so used to them, you get used to shopping places. And a common misconception, in fact, like growing up, there were two things they would always tell you that would happen if you left Long Island. One, you'd never be able to find the stores that you enjoy again. And two, you would take a substantially less salary working as, let's say, a teacher in another state. Now, I will say that they need to fix this whole teacher thing across America because I think teachers should be paid a little bit more, especially outside of New York.
A
They're
little
paid
bit more.
fairly, yeah, they're
It
paid
would have
fairly
been
well
nice to be
here.
paid a lot more.
Yeah, they're paid fairly well here in New York. I think they still need more support in some ways, just outside of the money. I think they need some support. But more importantly, like outside of New York, and this is something I've heard. So if you're a teacher or any kind of a state or civil worker, and you're going to go and take a job outside of New York, the pay is going to be substantially less. But when you look at it in comparison to how much the cost of living is to live here, that argument, I'm almost 40 years old, that argument that used to be made 28 years ago when I was in school really doesn't apply anymore. And these are some of the reasons why when you look at the amount of tax. Do you have a local state income tax there where you are?
We do have a local state income tax.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so and then Outside of the property taxes, when you go to buy a house, what's the buying procedure like? Because here in New York, we're mandated to escrow 6 months worth of property taxes and 1 year's worth of homeowners insurance. So our buyers' closing costs are obviously way above the national average. Our closing costs average about 5% of the purchase price. And that's on the low side right now, especially because of how high taxes are. So you're looking at probably on a $400,000 to $500,000 house, $20,000 to $25,000 worth of closing costs. What are they like for your area? How does that work?
So if you come with a mortgage, obviously the bank will want to escrow. So we do escrow property taxes. Everything is prorated, obviously, for the year that you purchase, but then we do escrow a portion of property taxes. They'll escrow about a year's worth, maybe a year and 3 months of homeowners insurance. But homeowners insurance is very affordable here. I mean, it is on my condo. I pay $180 a year for homeowners insurance.
Nice.
And on my home, personally, I pay about $1,800 a year for homeowners insurance. And I have a larger single family home. So it's very affordable here. So we will escrow those. But again, I mean, with the costs here, in general, the cost of living is so much less. It does make it affordable. There are people that I've had clients this year actually have a check handed back to them. Their earnest money deposit has been handed back to them because of seller credits that they've been able to get in the transaction, and then they get some money back at closing.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So for local comforts, going back and circling back to local comfort. So a lot of people here on Long Island, one of their favorite stores is Target. You got a local Target?
Oh, we have Targets everywhere here.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Local Starbucks?
We have Starbucks everywhere here.
Okay. All right. And you mentioned pizza before, which I thought was a really bold statement talking to a New Yorker. Have you been to New York and had New York pizza before?
I have.
Okay.
And so St.
How's it,
Louis is known for
how
a
does it
couple of
stack up?
different foods.
Okay.
But our pizza is not like your pizza. So it's different. It's a little unique. So there is a pizza place. They're very famous in St. Louis. They're called Emo's. And their pizza crust is more like a cracker. It's very thin. So it's not your typical pizza.
Okay.
Yes. So, but some people like it. They
Yeah.
grow up on it, and it's just like Emo's is it for them. So that would be difficult for people to find if they left St. Louis. Coming into St. Louis, you can get all kinds of pizza, but Emo's is very popular here.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you mentioned barbecue before too. You got a spot for barbecue that you want to shout out?
So there are a lot of great barbecue places out near me because I'm out in St. Charles County. We have a restaurant called Sugar Fire, and
Okay.
they are very good.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. That's great stuff. So anything that you think is unique about buying or moving to, do you guys have attorneys in your state? I'm sorry, I meant to ask before. We are an attorney state. We have to use attorneys in order to officiate contracts. Do you write up the contracts as the agent, or do you have attorneys as well?
So I facilitate the majority of the transaction. We do not have attorneys here. So we have our standard board forms that are written on, and I will be the facilitator of all of the contracts. We do have title companies. So the title companies will process the contracts. They'll pull title, they'll clear it, they'll add their title insurance, and they will communicate with the lender to complete the transaction. But yeah, that's me. I get paid for for the attorney work here.
Very good. Very good. So anything else you want to point out about your city before we wrap here for the day?
I would just say again, St. Louis is a very affordable city. I mean, even cost of gas. I mean, what is a gallon of gas where you are right now?
So I think I just filled up. It was $3.85 a gallon or something to that
Okay.
nature.
Yeah, so we're closer to 3. Sometimes we're even under 3. So
Wow.
250 to 3. It's very affordable. So St. Louis is a very affordable city. It is great. There are lots of unique places around St. Louis. You can pretty much find any kind of neighborhood you want here, and we do have all of the creature comforts. So if you're able to gain employment in St. Louis or work remotely, there is a plethora of affordable housing.
Amazing. So do yourself a favor, guys. Kathy, where do they find you?
So you can find me by just Googling me, but it's Kathy with an I, Kathi, Mackenzie. My website is exceptionalhomesstl.com. You can go there, contact me that way, or you can just give me a call, 636-696-6794.
Perfect. Guys, I highly suggest you go and have a slice of Emo's Pizza, hit up Kathy, take a tour of the city, see what they have to offer, catch a baseball game, float down the river, and, see if that St. Louis is good for you. I personally have heard a lot of good things, especially that, Kathy could maybe one day be my landlord. That would be fantastic. We'll keep in touch with her. We'll wait for that apartment to open up. But until that time, guys, if you have any questions for myself or Kathy, you know exactly where to find me. Information's at the bottom, and I will link Kathy's information at the bottom. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much, Kathy. That was such great information. And guys, if you don't want to move to St. Louis, just for Kathy's bubbly personality, I don't know why else you wouldn't, but she's fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Of course.
All right.